Um, I might mispronounce your name, but is it Mimano? I see you joined. Welcome. Just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Scott. I help kind of coordinate the meetings here for the facility registry community. So just want to say thanks for joining. We'll get started in a few minutes, and yeah, it'd be great if you could introduce yourself once we get going here, just so we connect everybody together. So.
Hey Scott, are you guys messing? Since we have this, Richard again, are you guys messing around with Fire locations in Fire already?
We like did some like scoping of it. I think it felt too early to like implement it, and we didn't have any projects actually wanting to use it yet. So we typically try to be kind of demand driven, where if we say, hey, X country implementing a facility registry has a need for something like, I don't know, Fire, right? We would then explore like actually embedding it in the tools and implementing it. But when we were looking at it, which was probably, honestly, this was like a year and a half ago, so it might have matured significantly since then. It looked like interesting, but we haven't, gone down the rabbit's hole of like, okay, what would it really look like to implement this? But part of it is just that, I don't know, from our perspective, there hasn't been like super strong demand for Fire-based registries yet. I think probably because just nobody even knows like what that means or what, how that's better than what currently exists or things like that.
Sure. Okay.
But I think as like the kind of ecosystem matures and there's, like broader sets of tools and systems using Fire, like it totally makes sense as something to look into. So.
Okay. Cool.
Are you guys using it?
Yep. Well, we just put, as you know, you're the expert here. So it's complicated because, of course, how do you do all the nesting with organizations and not just the locations themselves? So it's certainly interesting. We just added it to Iris, our HR database solution.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And OpenMRS just had a Google Summer of Code wrap up in August, in which OpenMRS now uses it.
Totally.
And Gemby just put out there a couple of months ago their open source Fire server. So I think, and as part of our thing for the facility registry, we definitely will use it as a major a source. So nice. That's great. I think this will be the year we really put our fingers into the pie. And get messy with Fire.
Awesome.
But will it? I mean, it's not meant to replace anything, and but it's simply yes. That'll be an interesting journey.
Yeah. I mean, our opinion has always been like,
but yeah,
the like tools that act as a registry should have kind of flexible sets of APIs that serve different needs and types of users and things. And so, I see that as just kind of fitting within the context of, well, hey, there's like groupings of systems and use cases that, would very much like to use Fire and have it in a coordinated way, sharing
exactly
workflows.
Exactly. So I don't know if it's mature enough yet in terms of our broader ecosystem as open source practitioners in OHIE. We certainly have it on deck for this, but again, this is just, we can switch over to the meeting now. But yeah, it'll be great to work with you about it.
Sweet. Anyway. Sounds great. Hey, just want to say hi to Adam. Hey, Adam, how's it going? Welcome to our facility registry call.
Yeah.
And Maguette as well. Welcome. All right, so we'll just be getting started in another minute here. We'll see if anybody else joins. But just while we're doing that, the agenda that we were thinking of today is to review. We did a survey to help guide our 2018 kind of planning. And my vision for this is basically that we will we would have like kind of inputs as to what kinds of meetings we should focus on. And then also to create a schedule of like different people presenting on their work, sharing the progress that they're making, challenges they face, how they overcame them, that type of thing. And to, allow kind of like interest and demand dictate what we talk about. So, so we had pretty good results. And if anybody still wants to fill out that survey, I can share it with everybody again. It's in our Google group, but we had 11 responses, which is pretty good. And we had like a couple kind of informal emails of like, hey, I'd love to present, but they didn't fill out the survey. So maybe all in all, we had about 14 or 15 people feed into it so far. So it's pretty good. All right. Hey, Dana, just wanted to welcome you. Hope you're doing well. And great. Oh, and then the second thing we were going to talk about a little bit was in OHIE, there's like a bit of an effort right now just to help quantify and describe like, hey, what is a registry? What is a facility registry? How would you articulate that to somebody if you wanted to do that? And like what requirements would be included there? And we actually did this a long time ago, but I just thought it might be interesting to review with everybody this kind of like user story mapping idea that we'd done before, and see if these user stories still make sense, or if maybe we're missing kind of a subset or grouping of them as well. And maybe we want to fill that out a little bit more. So those were the agenda items for today. And but yeah, maybe I'll pause here and see if there's any other topics people would love to talk about today, things folks want to share update-wise, or if we should just jump into it. And maybe we could do some quick introductions, because I love that we have a whole bunch of new people on the call today, and would love to help everybody get to know each other too. So yeah, maybe we could just go through and do updates, and if you have any other agenda items or updates you want to share, that'd be great. Adam, I see you on my screen, so you're first in mind. Maybe you want to kick us off with updates, and if you have any other things you want to share.
You know, this is my first community call, so I'm happy to be here. My name is Adam Press. I'm with RTI International. I'm just filling out the questionnaire right now. So
number 12.
Yeah, looking forward to that. But no, I'm working on the Global Open Facility Registry project in Guinea, and so just wanting to hear about everything that this community here is working on, and how it might apply to that work. So other than that, I don't have any updates, but hopefully the next meeting I will. So
Great. Thanks, Adam. All right. Who would like to go next to introduce themselves? Richard, can I put you on the spot?
Hi, sure. This is Richard Stanley. So I'm a technical advisor and product manager at IntraHealth. We'll be working with the community, with the facility registry community, as we go forward to with other partners, including Adam, who's on the call. It's great to have him on the call, around the Global Facility Registry core tool, which is to say kind of a tool to help anyone who's working in the field with different facility lists to kind of reconcile those based on maybe geographic location or name or whatever. So we're kind of working on that. I'm a technical advisor, so though I leave the management and program details to my colleague Dana, who should also be on the call. But we look forward to working with the community, and we don't have a lot to say yet. We haven't finalized contracts with Digital Square. But as we do, and Path, but as we do, we'll be able to hopefully hijack some of these bits of some of these meetings in the future to talk about facilities and facility reconciliation and facility list governance and all that fun stuff. And a great thanks, Scott, and I'm happy that Adam's on the call as well.
Yeah, fantastic, Richard. Thank you. All right, so we got a couple other folks on the call. Anybody else would like to go next? Namana, Jennifer, Magat? Yes. I'd love for you to hear you guys. Yeah.
All right, Jennifer, you going? Or
go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead, yeah.
This is Geoffrey Mimano from eHealth Africa, Liberia, and the reason why I'm on this call is because we are working to support Ministry of Health, build a health facility registry. I think at this point we've gotten them to the point where they have a master facility list, which is like it's an Excel that is very difficult to share around, even for other applications. They have an interesting, well, the interesting thing about this is that they've decided that their HFR choice of platform will be DHIS2. So
cool.
yeah, so they obviously upload the master facility list to DHIS2, and then they've defined some workflows on how that master facility list is managed. So updating records, registering new facilities, and so on. So that's the interface we are working on right now. It would be nice to see how that turns out.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thanks. That's awesome. All right. Jennifer, you want to go next? Nope, Jennifer, you might be on mute if you're still.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm
Okay.
Jennifer Sugars, and I work on OpenHIE. I'm on the architecture community, and I help steward that. And then in addition, I'm working on projects in Ethiopia and also some projects for PEPFAR. Neither one of those, I'm not working on directly on facility registry things for either one of those, but facilities are definitely concerns in both of those projects. So I just like to make sure I'm up on what else is going on and keeping tabs on what the trends are.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. All right. Who, Mimano or Dana? I don't think we've heard from you yet. Would y'all like to introduce yourselves real quick?
No, I just introduced myself.
Oh, sorry. Maybe Maget. I think I mixed up names there, the M names.
Okay, so my name is Maget Ndong. I'm working at PATH as a technical advisor. And I think I work on the same project with Richard on the Gopher.
Oh, great. Great.
Participate to the call to just take some notes. And
Oh, fantastic.
some ideas.
Okay, great. Well, Mamana, just so you know, your audio is a pretty low. Maybe it's something with your mic, but I think I got it that you're working with Richard on the digital square work and collaborating with him there. So awesome.
Yep.
All right, Dana, would you like to say a quick bit as well? Oh, Dana, I don't think we can hear you if you're there. You might be on mute. All right. Oh, maybe now. Can you hear us? I cannot hear you. Can anyone else hear Dana? Just not sure if it's me. Oh, no worries, Dana. Maybe it's something with your microphone. Maybe check out like the Zoom preferences and see. Oh, awesome. Cool. All right. Also with IntraHealth and working on Gopher. Very cool. Well, hey, thanks for being here, Dana. Appreciate it. So, all right. Well, why don't we jump into the results from the survey real quick? Just because it's kind of interesting, and the main thing we're trying to come away with after this survey, and if you haven't had a chance to fill it out yet, please feel free to. It's in the Google group. I'll probably kind of start forming the schedule from here later today. So if you get a chance, please feel free to fill it out. But yeah, so like you can see, we had 11 responses. We have like kind of 3 or 4 informal ones just over email that I'll work into here as well. But we had folks from all over the place, from PATH, from Registry, health sites, some folks from Nepal. I'm not sure who he is or where that is, but Dr. Abdul Amit's from India. Oh, Maget, I see you here. Randy's in Rwanda, so on and so forth. So we had a whole bunch of people from all over the spectrum fill out the survey, and a lot of people who are doing actual implementation work, which is nice. I think, so we had kind of folks give some background information just so we know where they were coming from. But the kind of interesting thing is we asked, hey, what are the kinds of sessions that are most interesting to everybody? And the ones that were most interesting were, hey, we want to have project and country case studies. Like almost everybody said, hey, these are awesome. And I'm encouraged by this because it means that, hey, kind of the direction we're heading with scheduling people to share about their work is a good one. And we're going to focus on people actually implementing facility registries and kind of share from their perspective how it's going, what's worked, what hasn't. Hey, we tried this tool, it had these constraints and these strengths and so on. One that kind of surprised me is that everybody wants to brainstorm ideas and collaborations. I was like kind of hoping people would be into that, but I didn't know it would be one of the top ones. Yeah, and then in a kind of a close third place tie, we have kind of informational sessions where we just like dig into a particular topic. Maybe it's integrations, maybe it's fire, maybe it's CSD, maybe it's whatever, right? There's all kinds of different slants we could do that. And then also like, hey, as a community, we really know the pain points in implementing a facility registry the best. So, hey, let's create tools and guides. So yeah, maybe I'll pause here and see. Oh, and demos was also tied for third here. So people demoing tools and showing how they're using them. So maybe I'll pause here. Anything surprise people or any, I don't know, strong feelings about what you all would like us to focus on in the coming year outside of these types of sessions? Just be curious to take a pause and see if anybody has thoughts or feedback here or anything that might surprise you. All good? Okay. All right. So, and these are the kinds of sessions, right? The next question was, well, hey, what are the topics that are most interesting? And by far well, not by far, but the most interesting one to everybody was, hey, how do we integrate stuff, right? And I think this isn't surprising because it's probably one of the more challenging areas of implementing a registry. A lot of facility registry stuff is pretty straightforward. Get your data together, put it in a tool, figure out how you keep it current, sort out the governance of it, all that. But we definitely see the integration part is where a lot of people stall out or have challenges with their projects. Yeah, and then we had, hey, how do you implement a registry? So this is kind of, maybe this first one is a bit more technical. The second one is more pragmatic of like, hey, how do we actually run a project around this and implement it? Keeping the data current and governance and interoperability were the other top three. And then we had kind of these other trailing ones after it. We just kind of did these topics really quick. We didn't get many other responses, but any other ones that you guys would want to see, other topics that you feel like are important? Admittedly, I'm not caught up on the Gopher work, so if there's something in Gopher that you all would really want to see in there, we'd love to kind of inject that into our planning cycle as well. Yeah, Adam from Step and Guinea or Richard, I'd love to hear if you guys have topics that maybe we glossed over in this quick survey we were doing.
Yeah, I think the governance piece is one that I'll be particularly interested in and involved with going forward with Gopher, at least in Guinea. So that's one that I voted for, certainly. So, the other integration, the APIs, and is also one that I think will be particularly relevant for the Gopher work as well. Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah. Anybody else? Other topics you guys would want to, shake your bidding icon for or something like that if we were at an auction?
Yeah. So this is Richard at Intro. One thing that's interesting is, I think especially for those new to the community generally, or new to working in international development, a lot of things simply break down to, okay, where do I get the latest shape files, or for facilities, or the latest facility lists, or the latest information by facility, and it's so incredibly fragmented, and you kind of have to know people in the field almost. Like, okay, I know someone at eHealth in Liberia to get the latest list of this or whatever, right? For example, not to pick on eHealth, and in fact, compliment eHealth. They always have the latest stuff. But I think you're talking to your contact in the Uganda office for.
I have to go look at your directory reports and pull it from there.
You talk to your contact in the UNICEF office or something to find a proper list. So one thing, and I don't know how you've thought through this, but as someone new, I would say I'm interested in how do we overcome that problem where we need to make sure that those working in our field do know where to get the latest list. It seemed like, it seems like such a critical thing.
Yeah.
How do you, so that you can work successfully with other projects? It's like the entry point for collaboration. Almost.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Richard. I think that's a super common challenge. What I would suggest is like, in each country, these silos exist, and you might ask one party and they're like, yeah, we have a list, here's our list. And then you'll realize like there's also 3 other people who you could have asked if they were in your network, and they'll also say, hey, here's our list, here's our list, here's our list. And, odds are they're each like a different slice of the country or slice of the health system, public, private, nonprofit, slice of like how facilities are reported in the country. Oh, hey, we just have the facilities that report into our HMIS system, or right. And the reality is like, every country has these silos and the governance isn't clear. So like typically how we've approached that in the past is like, hey, let's first clarify which body within the government is going to actually create and maintain and share this master list. So they bring it together and you form your kind of MFL, and that's an awesome first step, right? But then you're stuck at a spreadsheet, and Mamano, I think you were mentioning this, is like, hey, we have this spreadsheet and it's horrible to keep current and it's really hard to share, and it's probably like everybody always has a slightly out of date version of the spreadsheet shared on there or saved on their hard drive. And so the kind of next step for like solidifying that governance that we found in a lot of countries is to create something called like what we've called a public portal, right? Where that spreadsheet moves into some tool that can operationalize it. And by that, I mean like keep it current, and share it out to whoever needs it. And this might be like integration style sharing of like, hey, we're connecting APIs and the registry is pumping data into the interoperability layer or into some other tool. But also like from a human perspective of like, I'm an epidemiologist going to Uganda and I'm doing a study or something. How can I find where health facilities are in the country? And having like a website that's branded by the Ministry of Health or whoever that governing body is, accessible to people, that's sharing data publicly and can kind of like act as that conduit for sharing information. We found to be a pretty powerful thing to then reinforce the governance. So you stop having everybody say, oh, I have the list, I have the list, I have the list. But then you also have people kind of converging on that governing body to say, oh, hey, you guys are missing 5 sites in whatever district. Oh, okay, yeah, like let's work that into our curation process. And having just a simple website where, they're kind of putting a flag on the ground saying, okay, yeah, here is the data. We're the ones keeping it current. And you can access these fields publicly to be a pretty powerful thing. But yeah, there's probably other things to do as well. But that's
great.
One of the most powerful things we've seen. So
yeah, I think in governance would be great. It'd be great to hear more about that and best practices and what others experience. Also, I'd be curious just to add a footnote to that, which is what your recommendations are when working with institutions like OHIE, who try to make available to other actors, some kind of master list. But may not be well placed to do that, and it may not be just in their wheelhouse like it is with the folks on this call. Yeah. So anyway, just something to add. So if you're talking about agenda things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna write those down. So okay, OHIE, public portal stuff. Okay, cool. All right. Well, fantastic. Any other feedback from anybody else on the call? Jennifer, from your perspective, kind of operating more at the architecture level, just curious if which of these resonated most with you?
I think one of the things the architecture community is interested in right now is making sure that we document what is a health worker registry, and what is a facility registry, and what is a client registry. So those types of things are things that we're working up on from the top down. And I think we all have a vision of that in our mind, and we have maybe a 2-sentence description, but working on more of a concrete description, and maybe even a description and some base requirements that we can share with project teams would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's on our agenda today, which will be great. Fantastic. That's awesome. All right, cool. Any other feedback from anybody else on the call? Sadiq, I think I saw you join as well. Feel free to introduce yourself whenever makes sense.
Sure, thanks.
Okay, cool. So great. So the next thing that I think is cool is we had 3 folks, via this channel here, offer to do presentations. I think these were, we have like a couple facility registry implementations and a health sites presentation. I'll have to pull out exactly who offered that in here. But then I also had, I think 4 other presentations I was already scheduling over email that aren't included here. So that'll actually take us through, the next 6 or 7 meetings or so, without necessarily, injecting any kind of like informational or like working sessions into our agenda. So, I think we have like a pretty good runway of meetings coming up. And one thing I'm going to do after this call is start to assemble that kind of schedule of sorts. So we'll say, hey, the meeting next month is going to be a presentation from GEMB talking about their work in Mozambique. And, it'll be probably like a 20, 30-minute presentation followed by a Q&A and then any other business by the community after that. So, but yeah, one thing I realized is that I didn't give a place where folks could say, hey, I would really love a presentation from Kenya or something like that. Or like, hey, I saw what Bangladesh did with their facility registry, and it'll be awesome to hear from them. So I thought maybe I'd just take a moment to see if, hey, you might not have a presentation you want to do, but is there somebody you would love to hear from in the space that you think would be interesting? And, whether that be like the team from DHIS2 or a registry in a particular country, or, oh, hey, there's this kind of like Tupia thing in the Pacific Islands where they're doing kind of similar stuff. Would that be cool to hear from? So I thought maybe I'd just pause there and see, hey, anybody you would love to hear from on the meeting schedule? And, I'd be happy to, if you have a contact with them, reach out to them, or if we kind of collectively know them, we could reach out together and see if they'd be interested in presenting. But maybe I'll pause there to see if any kind of demand for other meetings or presentations from folks. And just to give you a sense of who we've reached out to so far, we reached out to the Rwanda Facility Registry, Tanzania Facility Registry, the Kenyans. We haven't reached out to the Ethiopians yet, but I think they might be somebody to ping. And then health sites. Richard, when you guys get up and going with Gopher, we'd love to get you guys a slot. And then I think
that'd be great.
Oh yeah, and then Mozambique with GEMB was another one. And I was planning to reach out to DHIS too if they hadn't filled out the survey wanting to present too. But yeah, anybody else like, oh hey, you're forgetting about the awesome work they're doing here. Let's get them in. Just be curious to hear from you guys.
Scott, this is Adam. In Guinea, I know that that Measure has done quite a bit of work, has built a DHIS2 app for managing facility registry data. I think that's being launched very soon. That might be something of interest as well.
Okay, cool.
At least to me.
Awesome. Yeah, would you be willing to like kind of set up that connection so that we could see if they'd be interested in grabbing a schedule spot? Yeah,
I'll do that.
Okay, cool.
I think maybe the DHIS2 folks, the developers themselves, it'd be nice to know. I mean, I sat down, I suppose many of you have done this, but you sat down with their REST API and tried to pull information from it and, deal with it. And I'd love to have some DHIS2 devs on the call, demonstrate the REST API, talk about the future of how orgs, what they call them, I guess, call them orgs and DHIS2, are going to be shared and used in the product, and what kind of support for other protocols like FHIR or something in the future could hold. Just kind of get like a walkthrough on their API, dealing with facilities and locations, orgs, whatever, and then the future. Is that,
Nice.
that
Okay,
make
cool.
sense? It'd be nice if we could invite them. That if they could do something like that. Yeah. I think we all have had to mess with the DHIS2 API already. So
Yeah. I don't think you've worked in eHealth long enough if you haven't stumbled across that API and tried to do something with it. So absolutely, I think that's a great one, Richard. Thanks. Anybody else? All right, cool. So the one other one I realized I didn't mention is the group working on the MFL guidance that came out, gosh, maybe it was like 6 months ago. They're interested in doing a presentation on that guidance package as well. So we will get that on the books too. Cool. Fantastic. All right. So the last thing was we asked everybody, hey, does this time work for you? Most people said yes. Some people said no. One person picked this kind of joke option that I put here. So I'm not sure what that means, but maybe that's 3 people said no, basically. And so I don't know, maybe we want to tinker with the idea of having a meeting that's targeting, Southeast Asia or something like that. And the rest of us who are kind of more either in the US or in Africa could, optionally attend that meeting. But yeah, so that was kind of the last one. So, all right, awesome. Thanks everybody for running through this. Any other feedback on our direction for the year? So our next steps are, I'm going to assemble a schedule, share that openly with everybody. We'll obviously reach out and invite the DHIS2 folks to present, maybe some of their technical developer side. We'll try to get as many kind of facility registry implementers to share about their work and progress as well. And we'll probably have a slant towards things like, APIs and how to implement a registry and governance and keeping data in a registry current and all that kind of stuff too. So, but yeah, any other feedback on our directions for this year? And yeah, just thought I'd give one last slot for anybody to give us any other feedback on how these meetings go, or maybe one other question is, hey, does once a month, is that a good kind of cadence, or would something more regular be helpful too? So.
I think this is Richard again. So, there's been we discussed this just before the call, Scott, but it's really interesting work in interoperability over the past 6 months, 9 months, with OpenMRS, adding support for FHIR endpoints to their API in the Google Summer of Code they participated in yet again. And that's exciting and interesting. I was trying to play with that over the weekend. Iris for the HR, Intrahealth HR database solution. We added FHIR support for that, some limited support for that. I know it's happening elsewhere, around the ecosystem. So I think later, maybe not immediately, but maybe later this year, it might be interesting to look at facility registries in the broader challenge of interoperability, especially again, since these big leaders like Registry from OpenMRS are pushing forward with this as well. So I think that'd be curious, something to visit or revisit in 3 or 4 months or something, just to see where things are.
Yeah,
since locations are inevitably part of that. But I don't want to speak on behalf of Registry, but I'm just observing that there's a lot of exciting work in interoperability happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea, Richard. You kind of say like, hey, here's where we thought this would help take us, and this is like kind of the reality of it and where we still think we need to go, or that kind of thing.
Exactly. Where it's not working or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like we're trying to do. I mean, it's inherently new and innovative, and probably like somewhat disruptive, right? You know, we're talking like new APIs and ways of sharing data, and connecting more systems together. So like actors are less and less operating, you know, just totally isolated from each other. But they're like, well, hey, you know, me as the health worker registry implementer has to now collaborate pretty closely with whoever's implementing the medical record system, right? And so while these profiles and ways of sharing data like float all boats and increase efficiency and all this, right, it also requires us to collaborate more closely with each other and be dependent on each other too, right? So there's it changes things significantly, which is probably good. All right, fantastic. Yeah, anybody else want to toss any other ideas out there? Sadiq, anything you're interested in, or anybody else?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, is basically we are starting off with the HFR, and we are using the DHIS too. So it's a great platform for us to basically learn from the big brothers. So I'm still just looking forward to the many discussions that are going to come along. So that we can try to incorporate some of the good things happening in other countries. Yeah, so still nothing much to share, but I'm sure with time then we'll be able to share.
Yeah, fantastic, Sadiq. That sounds good. Cool. We'll track some DHIS2 techies down so they can show you guys the ropes and things like that. I think that would be a great call. Yeah, fantastic. One thing I'm going to try to do a little bit better now too, and I think Zoom is actually going to help us do this, is to do video recording of these meetings and put them up on YouTube. If anybody's not comfortable with that, or you feel like, man, I just said something I really don't want on the internet for all eternity, feel free to always let us know. But just to try to help people, learn from these meetings, or review what we talked about, or say, oh, hey, that demo was awesome, let me look at it again. We thought just putting those up on YouTube would be a good thing for kind of like collective knowledge sharing moving forward. But of course, if anybody's uncomfortable, just let me know and we can chop out a part or just not put up a video 1 week or something like that. So yeah, just thought I'd share that too. All right, well, fantastic. So we're about halfway through our meeting. So the next agenda item was to talk about kind of like what makes up a facility registry. And Jennifer, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what the broader OHIE community is trying to do and how you're framing it. And then what we've done in the past, and this is like ancient history now, was like we did this kind of user story mapping across registry implementations. And part of what I was wondering is like, hey, is this sufficient, or are we missing some stuff you guys are looking for? And how can our community participate in that effort that you described? So yeah, Jennifer, you mind if I put you on the spot for a minute to share a little bit more about the direction with that?
That's fine. So what we're looking for is, a lot of groups are asking, what does it mean to be OpenHIE compliant, or what does it mean to follow OpenHIE? And in order to answer that question, we want to have some base capabilities. So, for example, from the SHR perspective, which is the shared health record, they're defining to be a shared health record, you must support these OpenHIE workflows. From the client registry perspective, I think what their discussion is mostly about are, you must be able to support one or more of these OpenHIE workflows. And in addition, you could have patient matching capabilities, and you could have capabilities to merge patients. And so they're kind of going through that type of exercise. So when I look at this is more, I think, what a user would want to use a facility for, facility registry for. I think what I would think of when I think of like what the base requirements are is that like one thing from a model perspective is you want to be able to add attributes to facilities. The tool must support that. So those types of things are things that I'm thinking of. I don't know if that makes sense, but we're kind of like starting with like, how would you be able to tell, is this a facility registry, and are these, what would I need to do to be a facility registry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like the way you described it, these maybe seem a bit more fine grained, right? But like at the same time, that one about adding attributes, that's kind of like a, I don't know, like this kind of structured data category here. If you see this, like, yeah, I want to create fields of certain types and format them in particular ways. And so, man, I don't know. One thing I was thinking, Jennifer, is maybe we add like a column here that's like, optional, strongly recommended, required, or something like that. And we think through like, hey, what are like the most basic things the facility registry needs to do to be a facility registry? And what are like common things? And then you could also see, hey, across particular countries, everybody kind of sees a facility registry slightly different, right? And they're using different tools, but there's some subset of stuff that cuts across them all.
Yeah, and actually your high level categories like on line 30 or whatever might be what your kind of requirements are. It has to support structured data, and maybe like a bullet under that would be it allows for configuration of data structures based on countries, definitions and needs, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about the workflow one. Is like, so for us, I think we see there being kind of different types of ways people integrate with facility registries. Like one of which is like the only workflow associated with the facility registry. I think there's two, but either way, the two workflows both use the care services discovery profile, right, Jennifer? Like, are we kind of, I don't know how I'm trying to frame this. How should we describe like requirements or workflows? I always feel a little weird about like the word compliance when it comes to OHIE, like you have to comply to what's there, because we also say OHIE is like this venue where people can bring their requirements or what they're trying to do, and that should bubble up into profiles and workflows and things like that to support them, as opposed to trying to fit in a discrete box that already exists. So I don't know if I'm articulating myself well, but I'm just curious, like, how do we approach that best so that we encourage people to bring their requirements and ways they want to share data to our community, and we don't necessarily try to fit like a square peg in a round hole kind of thing.
Yeah, so if someone came to you and said, is my facility registry an open HIE facility registry? Do you have anything that you would use to say, oh yeah, an open HIE facility registry does these things? I think like for the client registry, they said supports one or more of these workflows, may also include these types of criteria. And I think the idea is that we're going to have everybody kind of come forward to the architecture community with a first draft of what they think an open HIE component, their flavor of component is, and then we're probably going to have those discussions to help kind of make the information more generic. But I think what we'd want to have is, instead of just a 2-sentence or a paragraph description of what a component is, I think we'd want to have just a little bit more, maybe like a 1.5 pages or a page description of what a component is and how do you describe it. And so I think using language like may also support or may include support for these types of things is probably something that's going to be pretty common.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, cool. Sounds great. All right. So one thing I would love to do is just quickly kind of review these like categories and some of the requirements and see if anybody on this call has like a subset of requirements that we don't currently have. And then, to move forward from there, if anybody wants to help collaborate to update this document for their country, for their projects or, around the kinds of work that they're doing. We'd love to try and take what we've done in the past and formulate it into this like better depiction of what a facility registry truly is. Is that interesting to everybody? I'm not sure if that's just something I get excited about, but I'd love to just take a moment and maybe summarize these kind of categories of requirements and see if we're missing any or how we might all collaborate together to move it forward from here.
Yeah, so I'm just speaking from, so this is from eHealth. So in Liberia, before we start building the health facility registry, we're gonna do some user stories. So perhaps sharing this would provide some sort of inspiration for us. Then also, I think there's some peculiarities that are specific to Liberia that would probably we could share from our experience after we've done that exercise.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. I think that's super common, right? Is like that each country is a little different. The key spots that things are a little different normally is how data is kept current. And then also, sometimes each country like wants to use data or like share it out in slightly different ways too. So that'd be great. Mimano, I just shared in the Zoom chat the link to this document. It's been a public doc for a long time. So if everybody wants to open it up, you can peek in there, and it's always been kind of a work in progress too. So you'll see some tabs are more filled out than others, but.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Mimano and Sadiq, if you guys want to add a Liberia column here, that would be super awesome. We'd love that. Yeah. So please feel free. Well, cool. So yeah, just to summarize these, there's like some basic things of just like how, hey, I want to have data and I want to store it somewhere. Give people permissions and stuff. We feel like in our facility registry, there's some degree of like searching and sorting and filtering data is always needed. So that's another kind of common area where people are always saying, hey, I want to see all hospitals. I want to download all facilities in this region. I want to know which facilities are open. That's a super common one. Another area that's pretty common is just like bulk import export type of things. Like I have a spreadsheet and I want to get it into my registry. I want to export all my sites into a spreadsheet and share it with people who don't have internet connectivity, that kind of stuff, right? We talked a little bit about structured data, like, hey, we need date fields, we need categorical fields, phone numbers, emails, multiple hierarchies is a common one, GPS, IDs, all those normal things. Yeah, the next area that we found was common was like, hey, I want to manage who has access to this and who can see and edit what. So like, some things might be public, some things might be less public or just shared among a subset of users. And having a way to like identify people who have access to stuff and can edit things was important. We talked a lot about APIs. We don't necessarily need to go on that, but there's like a diverse set of API related and interoperability requirements. And we might want to update this. Maybe there's like a FHIR one, Richard, or there's like we might not even have CSD in here. This might be old enough so that it doesn't. So maybe we want to talk about that a little bit too, Jennifer. Yeah, so then lastly, there's always like this local versus cloud hosting thing that comes up. Activity stream, or kind of like audit trails, sometimes people call it, is important. Being able to see data in like a kind of a spreadsheet view or a map view in the tool is super common. And yeah, so I'll pause there. And then we had like some other kind of like dimensions of facility registry things that are common, like, hey, how do you keep this data current? And so we had a kind of a start of a list here. And then the reconciliation one that we never filled out was like around if there's duplicates or you're trying to merge multiple sheets together. And Jennifer, maybe we could steal from the shared health record community one if you guys have anything on that. And then, yeah, I don't know what this mobile one was actually. Maybe that's like you want to see data on a mobile phone. Somebody created that at some point. So So maybe I'll pause here. Any groupings of requirements surprising to you guys? Like, deployment stuff, nobody cares about that. Or groupings that we might be missing. Maybe I thought we'd just have a quick discussion on how these categories, appear to people, if anything's surprising, anything we really should spend some time cleaning up. Maybe I'll pause here for a second.
I think
categories are good at a high level. Go.
Awesome. Yeah, Adam or Sadiq, were you guys jumping? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think one of the experience from this documentation is, as you mentioned, based on the platform that you're using, probably you need more of the variables that you would want to collect, and also the section might also be more than what you just indicated, like probably like governance component. I don't know if it's there, but again, it's based on the environment and the platform that you want to use. It can also contribute to maybe additional of sections.
Yeah, Sadiq, could you say a little bit more about what a governance requirement would look like? Like, what does that mean to you? Just curious if you could unpack that a little bit.
Oh, so like for example, maybe when adding new facility, it's more of like the workflow, but we have like different bodies who are responsible for like the approvals and adding new let's say facilities. Let's say if it's a health facility, it's a clinic, or it's a lab, or it's a pharmacy. For in our case, we are combining the health facility to include even pharmacies and stuff like that. So there are different bodies within the ministry which are autonomous, who are responsible probably to manage the registration of new facilities. So it's going to lean more again on, let's say, the workflows, but there's more also about the governance, who should see what and who should be able to be responsible to particular functions. That's one of the components that I'm seeing is probably different from additional.
Yeah. Sadiq, that's awesome. I think we had a little bit of that in this kind of like, I don't know where it was, or maybe it was in data curation. But I think the one you zeroed in on of like that labs versus hospitals versus pharmacies are all kept current. That like curation happens by different people and the governance support that is like a super tangible one we've experienced in different projects. Another dimension is public-private. Sometimes there's like these private coalitions of facilities that are better suited to keep up the private data. And that's awesome. Thanks for
this is Adam here. Kind of going along with that, one thing that we're working on in this early stage of Gopher is developing a data use or data sharing agreement template for Gopher. And so I see some of these points under governance as being inputs to such a template that we could, at least for Gopher use, but maybe even extend that.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Adam, if we could kind of merge those like work streams here, I think that'd be awesome. Because, I'd always thought like there should, typically a tool will have kind of like terms of service and privacy policies and, that kind of thing. And also like how data is shared is actually implemented through, the setup of the tool often, and like how users are defined and that kind of thing. But, I don't know. I feel like there's kind of a world of like licensing, right? Of like, I actually don't know a ton about data licensing, but like, hey, this data is meant to support social good or something, or you want to like the format that you share data. I think is important. Anyways, maybe let's explore that. That might be a really interesting meeting too at some point.
Yeah.
So, I should probably do a little research on that myself. All right, cool. Anything else? Anybody else have anything you'd like to add? All right, cool. Jennifer, my last question for you is like, what's the format you want that all to look like? Is it a good place for us to start to work off this spreadsheet and then kind of transform it into something you'll I'll put up on the website, or what's kind of your roadmap for getting this done?
So I would not worry about format right now. What I would do is, what we plan to do is bring the content to the maybe the last architecture meeting in March and the first architecture meeting in April, and share it with the other teams. I think then we'll learn from the other teams, and then I think we'll kind of be able to know, okay, what do we have? And I do think we want to be able to put it on the wiki somehow. And what we want to drive to is, I don't know if you guys have heard, but there is an Open HIE meeting that's being planned in maybe for summertime. And it looks like right now that it is being planned in Tanzania. I don't know how widely that's been communicated, but I think at that meeting, there's probably going to be information that we want to, as a community, have available and make sure that people can use and begin to understand. And so I think having a better description of what each of the components are and what they do is one of the things that we would like to have available if that meeting happens. Yeah,
fantastic. Okay, cool. So so maybe I could suggest this as a next step to everybody is I'll add let's just add a new column here, right? Everybody should have access to edit this. I don't know. I'm not sure what we want to call this column, but it's like, I don't know, level of importance or something. That's a horrible name for it, but we'll think of something shorter. And we'll kind of go through and I'll suggest, maybe based off of demand from other countries, what seems like the must-have versus nice-to-have versus good-to-have kind of stuff. And it'd be great if everybody could review it. And if there's stories that are missing, let's add them in. If there's countries that are missing, you know, Mamanu for Liberia, for example, you guys want to add your own column here and start to think through these things, that would be really fantastic. Yeah, and then we'll take that as kind of a start for that discussion at the architecture community. So. But yeah, we found this doc to be pretty helpful for implementers to like think through, like, hey, I want to do a facility registry. I know roughly what it is. Like, you know, what are other countries doing, and like, what are the different kind of dimensions I should be thinking about? We've always found this to be kind of a helpful way to split that up. So, awesome, cool. Well, thanks everybody. Any closing thoughts on the requirements, or other things that you all would recommend? All right, cool. Well, so I'll share this out over the Google group too, so we maybe get some broader participation outside of the event or this meeting. But yeah, we'd love to get your guys' feedback, and feel free to add comments or add new rows or however you like. It'd be great to get your participation. So, well, great. So we have about 5 minutes left. Any final questions? We always like to leave a little bit of time for anybody new joining who's working on something that's time sensitive, or you have some burning question, Sadiq or Mamanu in Liberia, if you guys have something you're like, hey, do you all have documentation on this, or is there a project who's done this type of thing? We'd love to connect you guys to that. Or, Richard, if there's something coming up in your Gopher roadmap that maybe we all could help you out with, we'd love to, take a few minutes to respond to those kind of things, or, set up follow-up meetings accordingly. Anything come to mind on your guys' end?
Thanks, Scott. So for the Gopher work, again, just to reiterate, it'd be great to see everyone on the next calls for the facility registry community, because we'll be undertaking the work, and it's just so critical to have community direction and feedback. So yeah, so going forward, this call is just a initial kind of thing, but once all the contracting is underway, we'll hopefully be taking big portions of the calls, of a few of the next calls for the first half of the year. So please do join if you're involved in that work. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that. I think that'd be great. And for those who aren't familiar with Gopher, maybe we can share out a concept note, or one of those presentations that got put together way back when, Richard. I think that could be cool. A question I have for you, Richard, too, is are you all still thinking about like Gopher being a way to get data into OpenStreetMaps, like with the health sites folks, or Is it too soon to say like the exact scope of what you guys will be doing?
I don't remember what happened with the health sites stuff, to be honest. Did that make it into the final deliverables? I'm sorry, my brain is...
No worries.
All intelligence has evaporated. All memory has evaporated for a second. I apologize for that. I forgot. But I think so. Okay, so I'm hearing from Dana, who had a microphone problem. Yeah, but there is some work with them. So there is some work.
Yeah, fantastic.
So that'd be great. Yeah, we'll get much more into it in the next call.
Cool.
So thanks for your patience. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries. No worries. All right, fantastic. Hey, Liberia folks, anything you guys have coming up on your horizon where we could be helpful to you or connect you with documentation or answer a random question or something like that before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I think for us, once we start finalizing on the user stories, we'll have more questions. We're also involved in the Gopher project, so whatever Richard is recommending is really useful for us as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. That sounds good.
Thank you.
We do have some like data specification docs too, in addition to these user stories that we shared here. If that'd be helpful, I'd love to share it. You can see how other people, define their fields and that kind of stuff. If that'd be helpful. So, awesome. All right. Well, hey, any last questions before we wrap up for today? All right, cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you, and we'll be in touch over the Google group. And yeah, otherwise, our key next steps are we'll share a schedule for meetings. Love your guys' feedback on that. We'll update this user story doc and really invite you all to participate and update this and provide comments on it as makes sense for you. And I think those are the main ones. So yeah, thanks everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, bye.